This episode is brought to you by Hub24, whose purpose is to connect advisors to innovative solutions that create opportunity. They're massive supporters of advisors, in particular those going solo, and they're one of the early players in the managed account space, and their epic functionality in that area, as well as their commitment to user experience, has led them to become a market leader in terms of advisor satisfaction. I can speak from personal experience when I say their BDM team are total legends, and they're there to help you work through the best solutions for your business. So you can check out more information at hub24.com.au. This episode is also brought to you by Centuria, who are a boutique, ultra high-performing fund manager. They've won pretty much all the awards there are to win. They've got a bunch of 5-star rated funds, and they're heavy into technical support for advisors around their products and strategies. On top of that, they're just an awesome group of people, and they've got a dedicated team there to support you. And if you haven't already spoken to the guys at Centuria and heard about what they do yourself a favor and reach out.
We have Mike Weeding and Sean Brennan. I got that right. I keep on saying reading to myself, so I'm like, I better get Weeding right.
You get it right. Yeah, it's good.
And it's Michael as well, but Mike, he goes by Mike.
Well, Michael, if I'm in trouble.
Oh, is that the wife or the mother?
It was the mother.
Oh, it was the mother.
That's it. Yeah.
You knew it. Did you have a special name for when you got in trouble?
No, I think it would just be Sean Patrick. Maybe I'd get my middle name thrown in there.
Yeah, that's a good sign. Yeah,
classic move.
Oh, mine was all in tonnage. It was Adrian.
Well, did you know years ago a numerologist did my numbers right when I was about 19 or 20, and he said to me, you should stop using Mike. You got to use Michael, and more money will start to come your way. Wow. Right? So so I'm always conscious of going, well, maybe I need to stop using Mike and start using Michael and see if it was actually true. So
if tomorrow you rock up at AMP and there's an extra zero on your payslip. Yeah,
could be. I was more putting it to winning the lotto or something, So when you start seeing me use Michael more, I've finally listened to what this numerologist said.
You're feeling like a bit of money.
Yeah. I need some money.
I have a short name, so I never had a nickname, and now I'm in Australia. So
Shona.
So that's like very new for me.
How do you feel
really
about it?
funny. No, I think it's great. I think it's funny. Yeah.
Bloody Australians just like destroying anything that seems like English. Like,
yeah. We got to put an O or an E on the end of it, the name, and then you're part of an Aussie.
Yeah, that's right.
He feels welcome.
That's it. Yeah.
How long have you been here for?
2 years now.
2 years, and I hear that you were poached from overseas.
I don't know if I was poached. I asked if I could join AMP actually. Because I had been traveling back and forth probably since 2013, doing a few projects with AMP. So a couple exploratory projects to look at how Australians think about banking and debt, how they think about protection, wealth protection and insurance. And then came back to do a project around the performance management system at AMP. And in that I had a really good chance because I could study the company and I met some great people there, met someone here, so I have a partner here in Australia. So I asked AMP if I could come join them. Yeah,
nice one. So for those listening, these gentlemen are in what you might call the think tank of AMP. There's a subunit of innovation that I guess has been blossoming over the last few years, and there's been some really cool stuff happening, and a lot of stuff that smaller businesses don't have the pleasure of doing has occurred, and it's stuff that maybe is relevant for other people to understand and learn, and just sort of get an understanding of maybe some of the findings that you guys have had and what the journey's been like. So, Mike, how long have you been with that program, and what have you...
Yeah, so I joined AMP nearly 5 years ago. Before that, I was running digital at Citibank. So I've been involved in digital, or internet before it was called digital. I've been since about early mid-90s. And so I joined AMP when they were at the start of the transformation, and I came across with a focus to help build out the digital capabilities of the organisation. AMP had recognised that they needed to, create a deeper connection with with customers. Their business was focused probably just solely on advisors, and we know it's not that the business was changing to focus on advisors, but knew that to be relevant in this ever-changing world where technology, was driving a change in consumer expectation and behaviour, they needed to be able to know how they were going to engage with, customers of AMP. So I came in, 4.5 years ago, and I think for me it was a really exciting opportunity. In fact, one of the things was I came into AMP because I saw an organisation that was really serious about taking a next step and changing. I think the word being customer-centric and others, to me, was just a label that most were putting on. But AMP had a real focus, and there were some things that I saw that made me really interested about coming to the organisation. And one of it was the work that Sean's was referring to. AMP was one of the leaders in Australia to start to really explore human-centred design, and how do you apply that into getting really good insights into driving change.
Well, I think the seriousness in businesses, or large businesses, is usually defined by how much money is put behind it, and they haven't been shy in backing the initiative that you guys are working on.
Yeah, well, I mean, the capital investment that AMP's been putting around the transformation is been around knowing that they have to define a new business model, that's going to serve them for another 170 years. AMP's got a really strong purpose. I mean, the one thing I always find really interesting about the organisation is the sense of purpose. I mean, the purpose was, helping people live with dignity, that then translated into helping people own tomorrow. But it's a purpose that isn't just sort of taken lightly. It's something that AMP and the people that work within AMP, and from executive all the way down, go, AMP served the Australian society for 170 years. It needs to be around to continue to do that. And we need to be able to keep reinventing ourselves to be relevant so that we can continue to do the job that AMP believes that its purpose within Australian society is. So I think it's a bold purpose, and one that they believe in.
Yeah, if you don't change how you do things, you're going to be left behind in this day and age. It's just how things are. Like, it's technology's there, people are expecting different experiences.
Yeah. And
like, you guys are just I guess adapting, and like, it's you look at a small business or smaller practices, you might say, that need to adapt. It's quite easy for them to change. They go, okay, well, there's 3 or 4 advisors in the business, we're now going to do this. And when you're talking about the size of AMP, scale change is huge, especially when you see it stretched down through systems and processes. And I guess what you guys are dealing with is you sort of got a situation where, to truly, I think it all comes back to technology and efficiency and client experience, and to get the most effective, efficient processes, they need to be standardized. And this is any sort of business. Like, if you don't have, like, if you're dealing with different channels of ways things are done, and this is across the industry with advice, like, it's so hard to facilitate efficiency when you've got a whole lot of people doing different things. And when you've got an environment when people are doing different things, but they own that space, or they change management with someone that's not employed. Like, it's hard enough when they're employed, let alone when they're not employed. If you're not in a position to actually dictate certain levels of change, I guess you've got to create an environment where it's an opt-in around a business model and about into a standard that maximizes technology. Because that's, I think, what you guys have been doing is maximizing technology, and then you throw on top of it. So you can take the standard traditional business model of advice, making that easier to do. Yeah. But then you throw on top of it, you sort of got that, what I think would be really interesting to hear more about, which is the client experience aspect. And like, so with the research, I want to hear some of this research. What are some of the things that has come up when you guys have done these focus groups, surveys, etc., that like really came from left field, or like was unexpected?
Lots of unexpected things come up. One thing I think, thinking about a recent experience, was, to your point, I think a lot of the experience of integrating technology into this is about efficiency, and you achieve that scale by becoming much more efficient, by mechanizing a lot of stuff, but the power is really in then how do we make sure that they feel human? It's like we can make this as efficient as possible, but it still needs to feel like an experience that's deeply human to people. And that could be anything in how you present information. So a lot of times advisors today will show a lot of charts and graphs. And we did this test with customers where, we basically show them a standard, chart that shows you how your cash flow is going to happen over time. And it was so depressing to people. They referred to the cash flow line as the railroad to death. Because you're basically, even
this
if you're
is
doing
some of the terminology.
This is one of the customers, because even if you're doing a great job and you're watching that line kind of go all the way off.
Oh, this is when you're in pension phase and you're
Exactly.
You're optimizing. Oh yeah, so you can spend this much. So when you get to this age, you've got nothing left.
Exactly.
And they're like, I don't want to have nothing left. Is that what? Is that sort of
well, I mean,
feedback?
inherently you're looking at something that appears negative, even if it's a positive thing. Even if you kind of you ran out of money exactly on the day you die, it's still depressing to look at.
Yeah.
So on one hand, it's really depressing to look at. On the other hand, it's intimidating because most people look at charts like that and they don't know how to read charts. And not in like they're dumb, in a way where it's most people don't interact with financial graphs and charts all the time. So one of the big changes we've actually took into our design was just by removing a vertical axis on that and showing the cash flow in terms of a number versus a line.
Yeah. So you're not seeing that negative downward slope.
You're looking at a timeline, and people intuitively...
I was going to say maybe you flip it, and it's like your journey to your final destination. You're getting closer and closer. You just put it up in the top right, so it's going upwards.
Yeah. But I think...
But you went for numbers on the way.
Well, you see that people intuitively understand a timeline, and if you're looking at time and versus cash, it's just like we can show cash in a different way. We can just show them the timeline, and all of a sudden people are like, oh, now I'm talking about my life, my time, and it seemed much more human. It was an intuitive thing for them to look at. It didn't feel like a chart. It just felt like your timeline. And so that became sort of a centerpiece of one of the tools that we created. So people actually then say, when I look at that chart, I can't have a conversation. I need someone to explain this to me. When I look at the timeline, I feel like I can have a conversation about that. It was a big change in how just sort of start to surface some of the data to people so that they can actually have a conversation with us.
So that's sort of like the beta testing of people just sort of getting in and having a go. What about like any surveys or data that you've brought in externally, insights? Have you worked with any universities, or like what sort of... Oh, you probably brought in consultants, I guess, for different areas.
Yeah, we explore many different areas, and we're always looking for opportunities to sort of broaden both the way that we engage, but also to where we get the information, from. I think there's no shortage of information that you can sort of find in today, right? If you go looking for something, you're going to find something. I think it's about the ability for people to be able to interpret that information into something that's valuable. And obviously, one of the things that Sean and his team do a really good job of is I always enjoy watching them as they work through the process to get to insights and look for those insights to then turn into ideas, and then those ideas get tested. So that is a process in itself. Recognizing that and seeing that happening is, there's one piece getting information, there's other piece turning that information into something of value.
We'd have some pretty creative types in there, I'm presuming.
Well, yes, you do, and I think creativity is a word that I like to explore, because I think one of the things I anchor on a lot is the difference between creativity and innovation, right? And I think it's a very important differentiation to make, because creativity is that it's the insights, the ideas that are going to be explored as opportunities to be able to, let's say, solve a problem. Innovation is much more complicated. Innovation is taking those and turning them into value. So when we look at what we're doing at AMP, and we're taking the goals advice and the goals experiences, and that as in itself was an insight, because when we started on the journey, we started at a customer transformation journey to get a better connection with AMP customers. What came out of that was the connection people have with goals, and they have a very personal and emotional connection with goals. And Sean and the team were the ones that really started to extract that out and turn that into experiences as they started to challenge. Well, how do you take a goal? Because, to say I can help you achieve your goal can be such a loose comment that it is meaningless, right? And it can be something that can be misinterpreted as purely as an advertising slogan, right? And if you think about it, what financial services organisation isn't going to tell you they're there to achieve your financial goals? The reality is what sits under there to help you get there. Because if your goal, is to educate your children, right, in a particular way, or retire with a certain lifestyle, that goal and the ability to deliver on that goal is you've got to have a lot of substance. So the insight on goals was really interesting, but then innovating that to an outcome is something that the team's working on.
With the wording that you're saying, is that where, and that was an example before, I guess you're looking at the wording. What sort of wording has sort of been adjusted as well? Like during this, if you're thinking about goals, you're thinking about how you're describing life moments that people are aspiring to, or...
One of the biggest one of the biggest changes we put into the latest iteration of the Goals 360 experience is we really tried to simplify sort of the conceptual layers in the experience, because in an earlier iteration, people would choose goals. Within that goal, they had certain objectives. Then we'd talk about strategies and behaviors and products that would support that. It was like way too complex for people. People want to know, what are my goals? Like, what do I want? And what do I need to do? What are my actions? And we're really trying to simplify the experience down to a point where it's like goals and actions.
That's it?
What do you want, and what do you need to do to get it?
Okay.
And I think that's kind of a massive shift in how we start talking about it, because
so what's changed since when you first conceptualized things? Like, what has that constricted from a wider experience, I guess? Or is that sort of...
No, I think if anything, it simplifies the experience, because I think we are still doing all of that, all the strategies. The depth is still there, but what the customer actually sees is a much simpler experience, a much simpler language.
Yeah.
They don't care about, they just want to get the goal, and they want to know what they need to do. We talk about strategies, we talk about, behaviors, products, but they just want to know, how do I get that goal? And so how do we hide a lot of the things that confuses or overwhelms them and help them focus on what's really important?
And I mean, earlier you asked a question about what was one of the some surprises, and part of it was how some very financially literate people are scared to ask their advisor a question because they don't want to appear stupid, right? And the insight might be they might be sitting there the whole time and being talked to in a particular way, and walk out and go, I didn't know what they were talking about in a particular thing, and I didn't want to say that, so I didn't understand anything. So the work to sort of simplify the language, even all the way far down, that there wasn't jargon, and even you looked at even how graphs and all that are presented, and some of us might love graphs, but the way that people look at it and translate that as an insight, it might not be achieving the outcome.
I guess you're trying to make it people-proof, because one of the biggest challenges is always just because people are so good at smiling and nodding. Like it's just a skill set that some people really refine well. And then you're like, if you checking in on people, and that I think that's a real skill that a lot of advisors execute on and deliver, because it's that reconfirmation. You can talk about all sorts of stuff, but if the client's not walking away actually having understood what you you might still get the outcome. But the client's not getting that consumer experience that would be ideal, which is like being comfortable and confident.
Yeah.
So I suppose this is what you're talking about. So if you're simplifying that, you can always layer on more complexity after, or more technical if someone wants it. But if you start at least the base, I guess you're in a position where you're open for everyone, and the people that like that space, they can stay there. The people that want more complexity, they can sort of opt up.
Over and over again in testing, you see people talk about, like, if you're not approachable, I don't care how much of an expert you are, because I'm not going to come up to you and ask you the questions. We did one test with we had customers create collages, and one of the collages was, what's it like to receive financial advice today? And the one that stands out in my head was this woman had an image of someone at like a McDonald's, like grabbing a bag out of it. She's like, I signed up to go get this thing. And then I'm in there talking to a guy. He talked at me for a while. And then I left more confused than when I went in. And that's like a really common experience that we see across people. And then we ask them to make a collage around what should the experience of getting help achieving goals feel like. Completely different. They have, it should be architectured, it should be neat in delivery, it should be fun and rewarding, and it should be a mindful and creative journey. Like, these are the words that people actually said. And there's something about, we don't often think about financial planning as this like creative or mindful or really, like a journey that you're on. But I think as we can automate some parts of this, it almost should free our minds to actually really think about and really become invested in what the goals we want to achieve and really be clear about what we want to do. A lot of times you bring couples in, they've never even talked about what their real goals are. So it's a really powerful experience because they're having conversations they don't normally have.
Yeah, so that space, I guess, the journey into the deeper sort of discussions and what happens before that. Have you guys what sort of touch points and experience have you sort of looked at there? Because, you think about sort of like a lot of advisors it's more about the data capture, and if you can sort of park that, like we were talking about, and like I'm a big advocate of like the new data feeds that you can get through, and like people log into their bank accounts, you pull that in, all of a sudden you've got their expenses for the last year depending on the account, a lot of their asset values or their liability values. Cool, that's there. But how do you sort of prep people for these sorts of discussions? Do you guys have touch points on the way into these meetings, and what do they look like?
Yeah, well, we've actually created 2 new roles within the advisor experience, the advice experience. One of them being a concierge, so it's not just a front desk, but it's someone to help you throughout the journey, kind of be your touch person as you're coming in through the different parts of the journey. If you have a question, someone you can ask, host you when you come. So it's not about just like showing up and here's your appointment, but do you need coffee? Do we need help you sign into your account? Anything we can do to help you just get ready, because that lifts that time off the advisor. We created a role that we have, we call the goals coach. And this is someone who is trained to actually really help people think about what their goals are and really get clear and define what those goals are. And so those people are trained in helping to coach people through that conversation and draw out of them, like, not just what it is, but why is it important, capture why it's important, help mediate conversations between couples, especially when they're just getting into things that they haven't actually talked about before. So these are very different, very human roles that are important in helping to prepare for the advice conversation, but also lift that, make it more efficient for the advisor. So when people go in there, they're at a state where we have the data and we've already captured some of the data, but they've thought deeply about what they want to talk about.
You pre-position that thought, that line of thought, I guess.
Exactly.
And we've got digital experiences where people today can just go to our website and go through a smaller version of the goals exploration, the goals explorer, where they can start to set up. If anyone's
listening, Goals 360?
Goals 360 is the experience. If they go to amp.com.au and just go through the goals, there's a goals link on the homepage. Then you'll be able to go through the goals. We call it the Goals Explorer Lite. So we've got 29 goals at the moment that are the key goals that have been identified, and obviously that there's strategies put around those. But this Goals Explorer Lite just takes the top 13, top 12 or 13, and allows someone just to go through the experience and go through thinking about their goals, selecting them, prioritising them, getting a timeline, and at the end of that experience, while it's at an early version, it just gives them a bit of a insight in relation to things they could do. The most important point is that then links into their profile if they're a customer. That would then, if
they're logged into their
if they're logged into MyMP, they would, and then from there it would link into an experience where if they wanted to go further into the AMP advice world, that would all connect through, and then that would start them on the journey.
Well, I think, would it that experience, because it's all digital and it's all self-opted, that in itself, the analytics behind that and picking up the journey, Is there anything that's surprising that's coming out of that? Like you guys would have the information on where people, what people select on the most. Like, what are the more common goals that come up that maybe people wouldn't think of being? Is it like most people would go like, I just want to buy a home and like I'm about to have kids, I'm worried or whatever, or
yeah, they're probably things you could guess because they're not like the most common goals are pretty kind of standard. People want to buy a home, especially here in Australia.
Simplify their finances
and fix their cash flow, things like that. That actually is a big deal for us because a lot of times people won't go see an advisor because they feel like their normal everyday cash flow isn't in a place where they're even ready to see an advisor. So I think
I don't see it as like the actual part of the service is to get that to a better space.
Yeah, or some people feel embarrassed to go, basically show their like dirty underwear drawer to this stranger, and they could be embarrassed about it, or they feel like they need to get ready before they actually go see the advisor. So I think giving them the opportunity to see like this is a goal and it's something we could help you with, and we have tools that can help you with that, and the advisor, or we have a process that can help people through that. So I would say sort of there's some cash flow related ones, obviously planning for retirement and figuring out like what do you do, how do you save for that. Buying a home is a really popular one, and then making sure that your family is protected. So protecting your family through whether it's insurance or some other means.
And how, I guess, so some of those, so the journey then from, because a lot of businesses are trying to really orchestrate these sort of low touch points that sort of lead up to, I guess, more and more service, so to speak. So, like, someone's gone through that website, they're then coming through, they might have done the goals thing, they're getting a phone call, or they're getting shown certain emails, they're getting shown pop-ups in the page.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, and look, I mean, we're still building this through. I think one of the key things is, the processes we not only design the experiences but build them and prioritize investments. It's a jigsaw puzzle, and we know what the jigsaw puzzle needs to look like. It's just about assembling the right pieces and then refining them as you move forward. I mean, if you think about it, and let's take one as simplify your finances. And I don't know if you know much about the AMP Better account, which is a savings account. It's won 3 innovation awards in the last 3 months. It's
that's like multiple accounts managed from one bank account with like splitting it up with a tech interface on the top.
Yeah, no, so it's an app, that's there's actually 3 bank accounts linked to it, but there's an engine.
There is 3.
That sits behind it, and it works around the principle. And Sean was involved in the design of this from a customer research perspective, and we bucket our money, as we all know, pay, spend, save. So there's a cycle. We get income coming in at regular points, and within that, we've got to be putting money away to pay for the bills that are coming. And I think a big part about that is the apportionment of bills that you're going to have due in 6 or 12 months that are quite large, taking a little bit out of each cycle to cover your bills, to cover your savings goals that you set up, and obviously knowing you've got money to spend. And then what do you then do with that money that's left over, right? Because if all your bills and your savings goals are covered, then you should feel more confident to put that money somewhere else because it's not going to impact. Because I think the biggest concern, people have is, well, if I start going and putting more money into superannuation, what's it going to cost me, right? Right? What am I losing today by putting it in there? I mean, I always say, you see actuaries look at you and go, this compound interest thing, if you just put this money aside in 30 years, it's going to be worth this. But the human behaviour is, well, what am I losing if I put that money aside today?
Well, what's the, and like, it's a really good point. What sort of word, like if you're in part of that app, what sort of wording are you using? Because this is sort of, the language is so key in this whole journey. Like, what sort of wording do you use to bring out that, like, especially when you're talking about an app, it's so dependent on what wording comes up because there's no human involved. Obviously, with the human experience, you can orchestrate certain language as well. But, like, what sort of, so is it like, if you've accumulated in your bank, your spending account, you're like, ching ching, time to spend your money. Like, what sort of signals are you sending out to people to?
I mean, one thing we've done is within your save account, you can create multiple savings goals. So, I can create a goal for a vacation, or I could create a goal for a car. And I think, allowing people to create these sort of like separate mini goals, and the app can automatically apportion the money into those, and however what you send it. Being able to include an image attached to those goals, like, so when you look at it and you're like, right, I'm saving for a car, that's a car. If I'm saving for my kids, school, it feels weird to take money out of something, where there's an image attached to it, to go spend it on something today. So there's little things like attaching images to things, kind of, it makes it more meaningful than just it being like words and a number.
Yeah.
So I think making things a lot more visual throughout all of our products, I think right now is sort of a really big theme in the goals experience. Same thing, when you look at the timeline and you see your goals on a timeline, it's not just words. There's an image that represents it. You've renamed that goal in whatever words make sense to you. It makes people feel like it's theirs. They're taking ownership of it. So I think, linking to sort of giving them some control over it and some personalization, it helps them start to own it, and be less likely to discount the future.
Yeah, nice.
And if these experiences, like for different demographics, particularly if they're not ready yet to see a financial advisor, but their goal is to simplify the finances, and we can use products like Better, and our money manager services like the aggregation to sort of help them get control. Then when they are ready to see a financial advisor, then that's the journey, that life cycle management that all financial institutions want to, build that relationship with a customer and have that for the life cycle. Easier thing to say, tougher thing to do.
Still, like, lots of opportunities, and I think we're still at the beginning of this journey, because
the amount of data that's getting captured.
Yeah, well, and also, like, I think as we were doing research for this, one of the exercises we did, went out and we just talked to kind of like, who are people who help people achieve goals outside of financial advice. So talk to a personal trainer, a cycling coach, someone who we interviewed someone who rehabilitates prisoners into society, because it's like there are ways that they adjust their style, their tone. The personal trainer was saying sometimes you have someone that's all about positive reinforcement, sometimes you just got to go in there and kick their ass constantly, and that's what motivates them. So I think there's a lot of opportunity, and as we start refining these experiences, like, how do we dial up and dial down personality? Where does it make sense to, be sarcastic or funny or just straight talk? I think those are the things that, as we start refining the experiences, and there's a lot of opportunity to personalize as we get into this.
Yeah, well, it's what would you say? So obviously, there's some more ready to go sort of products that've been developed. If someone was just trying to sort of orchestrate some of the experiences that you guys have been talking about, what would you recommend that they, like just short and sharp? What would you tell them so they don't spend too much time? What would you get them to focus on and prioritize over, like, you could get caught up in all sorts of stuff here. Like, what would you think would be most effective if you said to an advisor, if you looked at this really hard and focused on that area, this was the cut through that we got a lot more out of?
I mean, for me, I think when the way a small business or a business could take what we've been talking about is, I think the key thing, and one of the things, maybe I'm just getting older, but you're learning, is you don't know it all, and you think you do. You think that you're solving the problem that you think is the problem that needs to be solved. And I think the way, and sort of challenging how you're thinking about how you're solving a problem and taking a step backwards.
So get out of yourself a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, get out of yourself, or who
get over yourself. Yeah, that's probably applicable to a lot of people as well.
Well, one of the things that we do a lot of work on, and that starts at the early stages, is that problem statement, is, well, what are the problem you're trying to solve? And then, talk to people and really try and understand, is that the real problem? Because you'll talk to people, and people are so determined that they know the solution, and particularly when I look at the team that we run, the digital team, a lot of people come out, here's the solution, let's build this now, let's do this right now, because we know. And taking that step backwards to sort of really go, well, okay, before we do that, let's really understand. Now, naturally, most people don't want to do it, and I think one of the parts that Sean and his team always get frustrated on is everyone just wants to rush forward. So I mean, for me, as a
so much enthusiasm.
Well,
We
we're
just
going
came up
forward
with
because
the
we know
best
the answer.
idea.
I know the
Yeah.
answer. We're the smartest people in the room. We know the answer. But who's taking that step back and giving you that other view? And you know what? Sometimes it should not be you, because you could go and talk to 10 customers yourself, right? But what you're
you
going
sell
to
them
do...
the dream.
Oh, you're going to influence
Yeah,
them, and
very
you're going to
biased.
listen to what
Yeah.
you want to hear, and you'll come out with the answer that you want. But get someone else who can go in there who's going to really sort of challenge and give you a different insight. So think about the problem you're trying to solve in your business right now. Look at what solution that you think, and even your team think, that you're doing to solve that, and now go, all right, what if we ask someone else to come here
let's bring someone
and
else
have
in.
a look at that? Do you think they're going to say the same thing? It'd be an interesting exercise. I would probably think, from experience, and Sean, you'll give more insight because this is his expertise. I would actually think in most times, if nothing else, you'll be amazed about what you find.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think also for us, even with our clients and any small business and advice, it's like, start small, because I think one of the things that customers kind of come back with is, with advice, you go in, you see an advisor, and like, boom, you're planning out your entire life. And that's like intense to take in. I just met this guy. I don't know who you are. I don't really know what you do. I'm not an expert in this. You are. So people they can be really intimidated when they go in, and then we try to plan out their whole life, and that freaks them out. That's in that context. But even in like a personal context, we're looking at how people do budgeting, and it's like, doing a full budget feels like so much work to people. It feels overwhelming. Like, I've got to clear my calendar for a weekend and figure out where all my money goes. So, one of the features we've been working on is, how do you help people do like a micro budget? Like, most people kind of know where their bad spots are. Like, I spend too much money on Uber. So if I can just track this one spend and maybe just set up a target for that one spend rather than a full budget, maybe I can grow that budget over time.
It's not as daunting looking at all my spending and going, I've got to, like, it's aggregating everything. You're like, this component, that's okay, I'll spend on that. And then you start, if you're not targeting, you make it easy for people to identify.
I mean, we're in the business of helping people. It's like, this is a journey throughout people's entire life, and we need to be with them throughout that life, and we need to build a relationship over time. So I think if we scare people away right away by trying to build out their entire life and plan everything, I think it is scary for people, because they know it's really important. They want to do the right thing. They're not sure if they can trust you, and trust is really at the center of so much of this. So whether they're dealing with someone else or even being like self-serving, I think finding a way to get them to start small and see some small piece of progress. See the same thing when I talk to personal trainers. Like, what's something I can help you get? Like, what's one goal we can help you get to where you'll see and notice a result? You'll gain some confidence, build momentum. You'll get hooked.
Totally.
And I think that's what we need to be much
you're
better with.
You're seeing that with a number of advisors breaking down their process, sort of starting to position like multiple meetings and really sort of orchestrating that experience to make sure you're not rushing things and not ending up with people coming out the other side with not having discussed certain things that probably would have been useful to discuss for the client. So this has been great, guys. It's we only have so much time, and it's been great for you to come down and share your experiences. It's some cool stuff. I'm glad. I hope everyone got something out of this out there, and you can just wander down to the Goals store and just like get a bit of an experience if they let you in. I don't know.
Still going through quite a lot of work. I mean, I know at the last AMP advisor conference it was profiled, and many people were very interested, and I think it went from a point where AMP's been talking about it for many years, and I think everyone's like, well, show me this thing, and then all of a sudden they were showing them more. But I think the key thing about this and the journey that AMP's on, and by means it's not for every advisor, but it's AMP's redefining their own business model as they put goals at the centre. It was never going to be an easy journey, and I think I know I take solace in knowing that it's not an easy journey, because then it's not an easily replicated journey. It's not something that someone's just going to come out tomorrow and go, wow, AMP's over there really helping people achieve the goals. Let's get our marketing department together and start attacking them on that piece, because the amount of effort and and time. And you're just listening to someone like Sean and seeing the amount of insights that's come from hundreds and hundreds of hours of working through stuff. It's exciting, and we're hopeful. We're excited about being at the forefront of helping a lot more Australians and a lot more advisors, and getting more people into advice, because we know that when people are in there, they're going to have a better outcome and a better future. So you want more people to get to that point. So it's pretty exciting. I'm excited by the journey AMP's on.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to see how things, like every year there's going to be more cool stuff coming out. So watch this space.
Yeah, definitely watch this space. It should be interesting.
Mike and Sean, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Cheers.